All right. Well, thank you all for permission to go to the bathroom. I appreciate it. How is everyone doing? Healthy and wealthy and wise?
Yeah, it's good, man. Long time no see.
Good. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's been forever. Okay. So here we are. I don't know. I think this might be our eighth session. Um, some people can tell you that that's pretty fast for me in step work. We can spend years on a step. So, so to go through almost 3 steps here in 2 months, it's like lightning pace. All right, so we are indeed talking about step 3 here, and I'm sure we'll touch on the others because right, we're never past those. The other steps. It's a dance, not a staircase. There's got to be a better way to say that, a catchier way. It's a dance, not a. Somebody can work on that. uh, uh, uh. Okay, so I just want to make sure I have my notes here for step 3. Oh, all right. So you all did this thingamajigger, right? You guys all went through step 3 and came up with this list. Yes. Does somebody want? I like it when we have somebody kind of read through theirs. Does somebody want to volunteer and read through what they got, and we can kind of compare notes, all of us? I've been talking in front of a computer all day, about ready to stick my head in the toilet. In a good way, of course. No volunteers? I'm shocked. Shocked to find illegal gambling.
I
in
always
this.
volunteer, but I have to be honest, I didn't do my homework.
Oh no.
That's why
Excommunication.
I'm not volunteering, or else I'd be like, I'll do it.
Okay.
So
Cheryl, would you like to volunteer? Would you like me to volunteer you?
I could, but I was not happy about this. So,
All right. Well, then we'll go to somebody else. Somebody with a good attitude. Okay, I'll read mine. I'll volunteer me. Okay, here we go. At the top, I wrote selfish self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. Okay, so let me do this here. Let me keep my copy of the 12 and 12 open right alongside of it as I read mine. Okay, be convinced that any life run on self-will cannot be successful. Accept that I am an example of self-will run riot. Above everything, I must rid myself of selfishness. There is no way to get rid of self without his aid. Use God's will. I'm going to highlight that one. There is no way to get rid of self without his aid. That's very interesting. Ask for God's help. But we had to have God's help. So ask for God's help. I make God the director. I am his agent. God is my new employer. That should be on every list, right? If we're dealing with under earning, it's very important to know who your employer is.
Real fast, Evan, this is out of the 12 and 12?
Yes. Am I not in the right order here?
No,
Let's
I
see.
might not.
You're
I
coming
think
from
it's
the big book, I think.
is that are you sure? Let's see. Because let's hold on.
Yeah, like I'm
There's another part to this list, so maybe my list is out of order. There's another part to this list that says decide to open the door. And when I look at the step 3, so I'm wondering what that part is. You know what? These top ones may be ones I've added after the fact. So let me start from the middle. I apologize to make it confusing for y'all. Okay, yeah, all right. So let me start over here. This probably should match if you started from the beginning. So decide to open the door, which I don't, the door of willingness, right? Decide to open the door of willingness. So to put that in actionable words, I must decide to open the door to willingness, or I must open the door to willingness. I must decide to open the door. Take affirmative action. Turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood God. And then I have an extra note here, and I'm not sure if this is like right. It says, to a God not of my understanding. That's probably not in there, but do you guys get what I mean when I say that? Like, if my ego can understand it, then that's not God. So it has to be something beyond what I can understand. There has to be a love, there has to be a presence, there has to be an intelligence far beyond that I have the capacity to take in and understand. Make a small beginning. Look like the hole in the donut. We're going to come back to some of these because some of these are pretty interesting. Practice dependence on God to gain true independence of spirit. See, these are all comedy gold right here. These last three. Those were like awesome sauce. Okay. Look at the results normal people are getting from self-sufficiency. Is this matching up with the order that you guys had better? Yes. Sorry about that. See how people are filled with anger and fear. Can you guys see that when you look around at people? Consider myself fortunate. Make a decision to turn my will and my life over to a higher power. Be aware that there are wrong forms of dependence. Make dependence on God my chief source of strength. I need to not place emotional dependence on people, places, and things, but place it on God. Be convinced that I have more problems than alcohol, food, relationships, etc. Nothing short of continuous action on the steps as a way of life will bring the much desired result. Take continuous action. Give step 3 a determined and persistent trial. This is all great stuff. Be persuaded that many problems besides alcohol will not yield to a headlong assault powered by self. This is very much at the heart of what we're doing here, right? Because we're going beyond just this trying to solve under earning, but to apply this to every part of our lives, right? From a hangnail to a hangover. No, that's not right, but just workshopping it there. I need to develop the quality of willingness. What does that mean? I'm reading all these going, God, what does that mean? That's an interesting topic. Make the decision to exert myself. Well, I would not put that on your short list. Apply sustained and personal exertion to conform to the steps, trust God's will. It is when we try to make our will conform with God's will that we begin to use it rightly. See that our troubles are of their own making. Conform my will to God's will. I probably like that one better than the more famous one. Right? That one is pretty famous. And in the context of what we're doing here, I don't love it, this one. It is when we try to make our will conform with God's will that we begin to use it rightly. That is preferable to just being in our own self-will, but I don't recommend using self-will, period, even if it is to try to get to God's will. That is kind of the one thing I would say to avoid, is kind of self-will. And in the context of, some of the conversations we've had in different workshops and stuff, you could call that self-will the fixer. You'd call it different things. Parts. Okay, then what is this? What's this top list that I have? I think these are the ones that were scattered throughout that I came back and found. So I'm just going to read these and tell me if you guys have these and if they're just in a different place. Okay. But see, make God your new employer. That's in the third step, right? Somehow these are something that I missed. And when I worked with the sponsee, I came back and added them. So feel a new power flow in, enjoy peace of mind, face life successfully, become conscious of his presence, lose my fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter, be reborn. Think well and make sure you're ready to take step 3. Okay. Is there anything that other people have that I didn't mention? And I apologize for it being out of order. Anyone? Bueller? No. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about some of these then, because this is fascinating. But before we do, let's have a couple of brave souls just talk about looking at this. Like, what do you get from this? Like, what do you get from step 3 in the context of here? We've looked at step 1. And if we were to recap step 1, we would say what? We'd say we're allowing these deep, dark, and intense feelings. We're recognizing that they are really at the heart of our problems, not the alcohol, not the under earning, but it's really this deep, intense trauma, right? That is really at the root of our problems, and that we cannot fix it on our own, right? We recognize and see that we cannot solve our trauma. Like, that would be a good way to encapsulate step 1. In step 2, we do nothing to try to stop it, right? And then we relax, we take it easy, we let God come in a little bit at a time, right? So in the practice of this, as we talked about it, we're allowing those feelings to be, and we're not doing anything. We are ceasing doing anything. And as we open ourselves to this experience, right, we cease fighting anything or anyone, we find that those deep, intense emotional reactions start to shift, relax, dissipate, disintegrate. All right. And so then that leads us here to step 3. So how would you go about encapsulating step 3? And so my verb for the first 2 steps is really, you could say allow, and then blank for 3, or you could say see. The verb for step 1 might be just to see, which would kind of be the same as admit. So then it would be see, allow, and then what would step 3 be? So you can have the couple sentences and the one word. And so how would you characterize it? Did anybody come away with some knowing or some idea of like, okay, this is what step 3 means to me?
Well, for me,
I'm,
like,
oh yeah.
Okay,
go
Kate,
ahead.
and then Raj.
Okay, I'll go. So for me, it's like a feeling of freedom and relief.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that a lot.
Mhm.
Okay. How about you, Raj?
I gotta be honest. I think you and I have talked about this. It's a very, I'm still having a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do that. I didn't even do the homework. I'm sorry. I couldn't,
Nice.
I have a hard, I get so confused with self-will.
Well, let's
God
talk about that
will.
because I think that's worth talking about. So, if you're having trouble with step three and this notion of turning your will and your life over to God, then what you're really dealing with, we may have talked about it in here. I don't know if we have. We're talking about God image. Yes, you're talking about you have an idea of God. So the basic thing is like, look, I don't want to run this by God because God might tell me to do something that I really don't want to do. And I really want this thing over here. And if I bring it to God, I might not get it. Right. That's the kind of deal, right? So screw that. I want this. I'm going this way. And what that is really a function of is what we call God image, right? I have an idea of what God is. Now, we just said, whatever your idea of God is, it's wrong. So, by that math, Raj, your idea of God is wrong. Don't worry, everybody's is. Yours is just maybe a little more wrong, right? In that you perceive, if you say God this way, see, God is such a loaded word. If you say God this way, if you say the thing inside of you that wants the absolute best for you in the world, then it kind of changes the character a little bit. Then you go, okay, well, that I want to know what that is. But that's what God is.
Mhm.
That's what God is. But the reason that you don't want to turn your will and your life over to the care of God is because what God really is for you is your parents. And who in their right mind wants to turn their will and their life over to their parents? Nobody. Nobody wants to do that. Right. And so this is this collapse of, because they were godlike figures to us, they taught us how the universe is. This is how we see the universe. So we didn't feel safe. We didn't feel loved. Like for you, Raj, we just knowing your history a bit, you have this passion that you want to do, and your parents are saying, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do something completely different that you don't want to do. So if you're projecting your parents onto God, then you're going to somebody who's going to say, no, don't do what you want to do. Go empty trash or do something that has nothing to do with what you want to do. That's why you don't want to go to God. So that's what we're working on here is there's this misperception of what God is. And that misperception, of course, is made up of anybody? Parts. That's the problem with parts. The parts misperceive. There was this quote in this other thing we did this week. I have it right here. Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. Now you should write that on your palm, staple it on a post-it to your forehead. It's like if you get that one thing, then anytime there's something that shows up that is not in agreement with that statement, it's like, oh, there's not enough eggs at the supermarket. There's not enough for me.
Can you
If you
repeat
can stop,
that?
what's that?
Can you repeat that? Infinite.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. And, and you know it has to be true because the guy who said it, his name is David Icke. And no one's going to quote you if it's not true if your last name is Icke. It's like Smuckers jelly, right? You guys remember the advertising campaign for Smuckers? With a name like Smuckers, it has to be good. It's kind of the same idea. All right. So what you really have, Raj, is you have trust issues with the universe. So when it comes down to the one question that Einstein posed, which is the universe for me or is it against me? For all of us, it is against me. And that was so helpful to me when I realized that. And this is a good part of step two, right? The continuing work on step two is you're constantly, so now get this, you're constantly refining your understanding of God. Let me say that a different way. You're constantly refining your understanding of your own truest self. You are constantly getting in better touch with your own deeper wisdom and coming to know it better. And you're coming to know that the universe is for you, not against you. Any part of you that feels like the universe is against you is a part that you now take back to step one. And I went through the exact same thing, man. I mean, it was like at 24 years of program or whatever it was, 22 at the time. it was like I trusted God a lot. I trusted God enough to leave. What? I trusted God enough to leave a six-figure job in the middle of the pandemic, which is a bad idea, just in principle alone. But I was fine to do it because I trusted God that much. But it took that and going through all this other stuff to realize I did not trust that the universe really wanted me to be happy. It wanted me to have enough, but it didn't want me to be joyful. Where does that come from? My dad did not care if I had joy in my life. My dad wanted somebody to help him build his house in Yucca Valley and use me as slave labor. He just didn't care. So that's where I got the idea from, you see? And I projected that onto this loving energy of the universe that only wants the best for me. But what I'm projecting onto the world that all I can see is I'm not supposed to be happy. I don't get to be happy. I don't get what I want.
That's
So
awesome.
that'll be an ongoing thing for you to be sort of working through.
Dude, and I could really feel that. Thank you. I could actually feel that in my body and my spirit. I've never really done the steps this way, so I love it, Evan. Thanks.
Good. All right. Anybody else have their kind of summation of step 3? Yes.
I wanted to add,
Went already.
I've been doing like not quite the exact two-way prayer, but
Yeah.
sort of my conscious contact with my
Yeah.
higher power. And I've been asking and also sharing, like, please remove from me whatever you don't see fit. Please take away what's not good or safe for me. Like it's not like it's sort of like I gave my higher power permission, but I know that I'm not God, right? So it's not really that. It's just like a more like a conversation. Like, help me. Like, if you see that this is not good for me, take it away.
That's
And
good.
in the past, that was never how I always was like in charge.
Yeah,
And
no, that's
so,
beautiful. That's wonderful. So
mm,
this whole thing, and by this whole thing, I mean life, it comes down to almost a simple question of trust, safety. This whole thing, this whole game is a question of, can I survive? At least that's how the ego sees it. The ego is in a fight for survival. But our higher consciousness, which is infinite, is not in a fight for survival. It's fine. And so what we're doing is we're letting go of this lack of trust, this animal that's so afraid that it's going to be eaten by a dinosaur or a mountain lion or whatever it is. And we're learning to sort of quietly listen and hear. And so for me, the word for step 3, even though I don't think it's in here, but in terms of the actual practice of what you're actually trying to do, is listen. You're trying to hear, what is the thing that you want me to do?
so your words are see, allow, listen.
Yes.
That's great.
Sometimes they're allow, listen.
Mhm.
Because when that feeling comes up initially, what I'm doing, just like that hiker that I described in one of our sessions, they fell off the mountain, is I'm instinctively now just trying to relax into it. That thing comes up that says, oh no, I'm under threat. Can I allow that feeling in? And then I go straight into feeling it. So for me, I guess I'm really fast forwarding through step 1 because I know anytime that I have a feeling that is not joyous, beautiful abundance, it's the ego and I'm powerless over it. So for me, it's like that. It's like, it's like to go from 0 to step 1 is like, it doesn't take long. You know what I mean? But so there might be this seeing where it's like, okay, I see that this reaction is here. And if I can, again, some of the tools we talked about, you can always go back and look and listen, but right, is can I see that I'm powerless over this feeling? I've been fighting this feeling my whole life. In fact, I had this feeling when I was 3, and I've had it for the last 40 years or whatever it is. Right. That helps me to see that I'm powerless. And I go, okay. And if you're really honest with yourself, if you really are, you'll see that this feeling, this intense feeling, has just always been there in the background. this intense feeling of not feeling safe or feeling threatened, or this rage or this hurt, whatever it is, these things last a lifetime. But that's the beautiful thing about this is they don't have to control us for our whole lives. It's like I've had long conversations with Natasha about this whole notion of dying before you die. Like my mother pushed everything away and then was like cramming for a test. The last years of her life, she had to let go of everything. This process is a way of letting everything go and then enjoying the last 30 years. It's like get your homework done early and enjoy the rest of the night, which I keep trying to teach my son. He doesn't want to listen. No, Dad, I'll do my homework Sunday night at 7 p.m. Oh shit, I forgot this, I forgot that, Like that's how my parents approach death. It's like, let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's let go of all the pain now and then just relax. Okay, let's talk about some of these things in the context of step 3, because there's some good stuff here. So I'm going to start in the middle and then come back because I think. So the ones that I have highlighted, because we're not going to go through all of them, but make a small beginning. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Make a small beginning. Look like the hole in the donut. What does that mean? So this is a direction. How do you do that? Right? Make a small beginning. You go, okay, I can wrap my head around make a small beginning. How do you practice look like a hole in the donut or be? I would say even be the hole in the donut, right? How do you practice be the hole in the donut? Nobody?
I
Yes.
think it means have an open mind and like an open heart. Like, so it's like circular, like you're
Oh, I
just.
like that. I like
Mhm,
that. I like
mhm,
that. So
mhm.
not to get too esoteric with you guys, but the 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 freedom of non-existence is perhaps the greatest joy there is, right? Let me say it another way. The curse of trying to be somebody is one of the greatest pains there is in life. So there's a line where it talks about humility, and humility and this goes hand in hand. When you're humble, you're not worried about being anything to anybody. You don't have anything to prove. You can relax and just be yourself.
Mhm.
And the ego, again, needs to be somebody important. If you see this in yourself, if you notice this in yourself, this is a part, right, that's built into us that's trying to get the love of others, that's trying to be something great so that other people will love us, so that they will keep us around, so that we will be safe, right? But if you can actually just really get next to, like, how can God be the most powerful force in the universe and at the same time be the most humble? How is that possible? Our mind can't really contain these two opposites, right? The mind. So I always say, and again, I apologize for being a little esoteric, but I always say that you're not really getting to the truth unless you're dealing with paradox. So if we talk about God as being everything, right? It says God is either everything or is nothing. You can also talk about in the same breath God being nothing. And there's this divine emptiness in which you don't have to do anything, be anything, prove anything to anybody. That is the most relaxing and enjoyable thing in the world, to just be. And so for me, when I translate this and I try to practice this, be the hole in the donut is don't need to have an identity. If I could pass on a very good feeling to you, if I could actually do that, I would pass on this feeling of you don't have to be anything great in order to be the amazing person that you are. you can just relax and just be. It's more than enough. More than enough. All right. So I don't know how that, I don't know if that, I don't know if I made a good enough pitch where that'll make your short list. Okay. To practice dependence on God to gain true independence of spirit. Can somebody talk to that?
I think that means like, um, if we depend on God, then we can have like interdependence with others and like be a whole person, like
Yeah. I think that's
spiritual.
pretty well said. I think that's pretty well said. It's kind of ironic that you sort of follow something else and somebody else, right, in order to be independent of spirit yourself. But remember, the thing that you're following is really your deepest, truest self. So that's how it makes sense, right? You're you're releasing your dependence on ego, and you all are absolutely dependent on your egos. You listen to them voraciously tell you what to do, and you believe it, you follow it. Suckers. I include myself in that. To less and less every day, right? But so when I get to listen to that truth inside of me, um, that's when I start to get really sort of independent. And independent again, it kind of circles back to this thing of, well, I don't really need to get my love from you. It's like if I'm made of love, then what am I trying to get from you? Much more relaxing way to live. Okay, make dependence on God my chief source of strength. I definitely recommend that. Be convinced that I have more problems than alcohol. Is everybody here already convinced of that one? Okay, good. Nothing short of continuous action on the steps is a way of life to bring, it will bring about the much desired change. You know, that's true. And so sometimes it can get confusing. We talk about continuous action. When they talk about this, these are steps of action. I told you already what I think my actions are, what I think those actions are. See, allow, listen. Those are actions. So you need to be continuously in action. But sometimes that gets translated into I have to do. I've got to do the footwork, you know, and that can get you very much into trouble. You know, it's like God requires me to do the footwork. And so everybody's out there being in self-will, doing all this junk that they didn't really hear God tell them to, you know, like the classic one that I hear all the time. I hear this every day. Well, I've got to earn. And it's usually said like that. It's usually said like that with this angry urgency. Well, I got to earn, don't I? I mean, come on. No, I totally buy that that's the voice of God. I can just tell by the way it's coming out of your mouth. It's absolutely the voice of God. It's not even a petulant 3-year-old that's taken over your body and running you. It's not even that at all. Right. So it's so easy to be co-opted by anything, especially strategies and systems and books and teachers. So easy to lose yourself and to go, well, they said this, so that's got to be true, and follow that and not hear your own instinct. That's why step 3 is the word is listen. If you really listen, you'll get this dope, and then it'll be so much easier to take the right action. But in order to do so, the main look, I'm gonna cut to the chase here, just to, you know, in case, you know, like aliens microwave us in the next 3 minutes, right? I want to give you the answer at the back of the book, right? Is if you're not taking action from fear, that's the best start you can make. So the best way to practice step 3, because you're gonna love this, the best way to practice step 3 is to sit on your couch and not move until you get a really clear instinct from God. Because what's going to happen, it's a little bit like, you know, Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights and had to deal with all his demons. It's a bit like that. If you sit on that couch and don't do anything, your brain will literally start screaming at you. What are you doing? You got to get off this couch. You got to go do this. You got to do that. What are you doing? And the next thing you know, you don't even respond to a thought, and you're in the kitchen eating cookies out of a box. You know what I mean? It's like that's, I mean, it's amazing. If you want to see how run you are by your disease, and all of that is the opposite of step 3. So step 3 is you just sit there and you go, oh, that's fear. Oh, there's urgency. Okay, good. You got to do some yoga. Okay, for sure. I've got to do that because you're screaming at me. You know, you start to discern. You have to get past all the noise to start to hear, as Steven Spielberg said, that still small voice inside you never shouts, it only whispers. And that's why we can't hear it, because we have these voices in our head. You got to do this. You got to earn. And I'm in favor of earning. I think everybody here knows that I'm in favor of earning. I think it's great. And I think it's great to do stuff, work that you love and earn. And that's all really wonderful. But that thing that sounds good, I've got to do yoga every day this week. Okay, that's essentially a healthy idea, but in the way that it's delivered, the tone, you can tell that that is not the voice of God. So you have to start to recognize what is God and what isn't. And this two-way prayer writing is a very good first step way to do it. I used to do the steps this way. I would have people write. I got this from my first sponsor. I would have people write out a paragraph on each word of the step. So like it was we. You might have even done this. Yeah. We. So you define, you go, okay, we. How does the dictionary define it? What do my emotions say about it? What is my disease reaction to the word we? Then what does or what is my emotional reaction to the word we? Then what does my disease have to say about it? And then what does God have to say about it for each word, right? We admitted we were powerless. So, and what was really cool is that the best thing that came out of that was, so like we, a group of people, um, we, my definition of we would be like me and all the people I know. My emotional reaction is I'm a little bit scared of people. The disease reaction is we do not need any of them. Get them away. And God's reaction is, you are this interconnected spirit. You are connected with everybody already. Right. So you hear these sort of different perspectives, and it starts to help you hear the difference between what God has to say and what the disease has to say. How could those be more different? Get away from them. To you are already connected to everybody. Right. To start to hear the difference between these two things. Once you start to do it, the difference gets pretty clear. Right. It really does. It's like, whoa. And so you get better and better at not listening. Which one? Not listening to this one. Okay.
I just want to add something in, like,
Yeah.
um, my sister about 3 years ago said, "You're so quiet. You used to be so loud all the time."
Mm,
Right?
right.
And then like fast forward to this year, like maybe 3 months ago, she said the same thing again. Like, we don't even know you're here. Like, you're so quiet. Because I realized through doing, other work and stat work that like my insides were screaming all the time. Like, I wanted to be heard. I was like looking for validation. I was
Sure.
angry. I was in fear. And then like this quietness started to come over me, and like it's peace, really. Even though like I'm in a bottom around money, like I'm still peaceful. Like,
Yeah.
that's confusing to me a little bit, but like I'll take it.
It's not confusing to me because money is not the cause of feeling insecure. That's, again, we're never upset for the reason we think we're upset. Step one.
Okay, that's good. You
Yeah.
can help me, that you just helped me with that. Yeah, because I say like, why aren't I more upset about the fact that I'm almost in overdraft? I'm just like,
Yeah. Right. It's
it's
essentially a neutral thing.
it's fine. Like, what
But
am I
but
gonna do?
a fractured consciousness, a fear-based consciousness that feels that life is not for them is going to go, oh no, I'm going to be dropped. I'm going to be dead soon. But
Mhm.
that's the consciousness that we're healing from, all of us, I think. Okay. Conform my will to God's will. All right. I don't want to read this anymore. Um, make God my new employer. I'm just going to go through here and just say things I think that probably should be on your short list. I think practice dependence on God to gain true independence of spirit. I think for sure. Make God your new employer for sure. This one for sure. Lose interest in myself and my little plans. Make God the director, be his agent. Above everything, we must be rid of selfishness. I would just change that to above everything, we must be rid of self. Now, that's a little bit of a tricky idea, right? Because we have these parts, and what we're learning to do with these parts is to console them and to be with them. And what it really means, when it really means self, it really means listening to self. We just don't want to listen to those parts. We still want to, we're not trying to kill them. We're trying to love them. And as we love them, they dissipate. I think this is just a good overall one. Nothing short of continuous action on the steps as a way of life will bring the much desired result. And so when you guys hear that, when you hear this notion of continuous action, does that sound like a burden and or an impossible task? It's okay to be honest if that's the case.
No.
Okay, good.
Not anymore after you explained it.
You crack me up, Kelly. Okay, any questions? So you're going to go through, you've made the list, you're going to cull it down to your short list. Right?
Oh yeah, I had a quick question.
Yes, please.
My good man. What was
Yes,
the
sir.
one that you wrote about feel a new power flow in?
Yeah. There's feel a new power flow and enjoy peace of mind, face life successfully, become conscious of his presence, lose my fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter, be reborn. And is your question, where did I find that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that in there either.
It says no.
I really liked it. I just wanted to.
It's in there somewhere. You know where it is, Kate? Did you
It's
say it
from the
is in
big
there?
book.
No. Is that from the big book?
Mhm.
Oh, that's what I did. That this first part was by looking up and doing the same thing, taking the instructions from the big book.
Okay, not 12 and 12. Got you.
Not the 12 and 12. So
No worries.
that's where the confusion came in. I kind of pushed this all together in my own step work to make my list a little bit easier. But yeah, those are some, so that last section that I did, I wonder if we should do step 3 in the big book, because I don't know. Let me think about that. Because those are some good ones.
Yeah, that was a juicy one.
Yeah, very juicy. It's kind of like the promises.
Yeah, that felt like alive. I felt really alive when you said that one.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. I mean, because we're getting some good stuff from that. So let's go through, find step 3 in the big book. I trust that you guys are all smart enough to figure out where that is, and then do the same thing there, and we'll make our list from both of these.
Page 16.
Page 16. If you have a hardbound book, which
60.
page 0, is that what you said? 60. Thank you. All right. Well, so yeah. So as you think about this, and again, because what my general understanding of how we normally, from a regular step perspective, look at this is we do a lot of prayer. We're in a bind of some kind. The rent is due, or the roof fell in, or whatever it is, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And we're praying and we're talking about it to other people to try to get our solutions. Right. And then the people who are more using this step are trying to go to God to say, God, please show me what the right action is to do in this situation. That's my general understanding of how we normally think about step 3. Is that right? So, so what I would say the difference is if the roof falls in, first we go, oh shit, I feel really afraid. Like the roof blew off this house that we live in a couple years ago. I was like, right. So boom, here's a reaction. What am I reacting to? I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm not okay. I'm afraid I'm not taken care of. Step one, I see it. I start to sit with it. I sit with that feeling. Now I'm in step two. I'm going through it. I keep sitting with it. And then something breaks, and now I'm sitting and I feel calm. And in that calmness, now I'm listening. And so this for me is the order. And this is like how to deal with your problems, like in a way that actually works. Because I don't want to make a decision until I calm. And so I pause and I don't do anything about the problem. I forget about the problem until I deal with the emotional reaction by using the steps. So I get through step two, I'm calm. Now I look at the problem and I go, oh, I should do X, Y, or Z. And my calmness about that solution and what the actions are lets me know if I'm on the right path. It should all feel very quiet. So let me give you an example. I haven't said this one. So my wife, her biggest fear is her sister dying and her having to take care of her sister's daughter for the rest of her life. Biggest fear. So one day my wife gets an email that's saying, hey, I want to talk to you about being my daughter's godmother. Boom. I mean, my wife, full 100% PTSD, like shell shock, can't think straight. And she's like, so what does she do first? What am I going to write? What do I say to her? Right. So you notice first, what's the reaction? What's the disease telling her to do? Her disease is telling her to try to solve these feelings by coming up with the right solution. Right. So, that's not the way that we do. So she goes, what do I, and I said, okay, let's just try this. Let's sit with this and let's do it this way. So my wife calls it sitting with the lava. That's her. When I say being with it, she calls it sitting with the lava. Um, and so she just sat with this and she probably sat with it for half a day. And one of the things that's really interesting about this, if you'll notice, when you really get into a situation, is the disease is trying to focus and bring back to the problem all the time, like a magnet it is. So you have to really, it says in the big book, it says each of these steps asks us to go against our own um, personal what, whatever inclinations, right? So you have to sort of keep bringing it back to the emotion. The emotion is where all the energy is. That's actually the real problem that you're having is you can't handle this emotion. You want to get away from it. So we took her into it. And so she sat for a half day and we said, okay, we're going to forget about the letter and we're just going to focus on the emotions. And it might take a week, it might take 3 days. And she sat with it for about half a day. And then she said, she goes, I've been sitting with this. She goes, and you know what you know what? I don't know if this is the answer, but I could just write a letter saying that wherever my niece is in the world, if my sister is to die, I would just go there and I would help her make the best plan for her at that time. And it was like, okay, we sent that, and her sister was overjoyed with that, and everybody was happy, and the whole thing just went. But it literally, knowing my wife in that whole situation, it could have been a month. And I'm not even joking, a month of just absolute just torture and terror. But by walking into the terror, the eye of the storm, walking into the powerlessness, something shifted and clarity, right? Step two, sanity will be restored. When sanity is restored, that's when you move to step three. That's your cue. And now you can listen for what is the universe telling me. And you won't be that hard to hear the answer because you're not, most people stay in that chaos and are trying to talk to God and say, okay, God, what do I do? What should I say to my sister? Should I do this? Should I do that? Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to do this. And this is how most problems get solved. And it's just a colossal train wreck. And so these elegant solutions come when we really apply these things to real life. all this stuff is not theoretical. It's immensely practical. Okay, that's enough talking by me for one day. Thank you all. I will see you next week, and we'll go over your short list for step 3. And then also see, this is kind of a good week to sort of listen for your intuition and see how that's guiding you. And then come prepared to talk about that next week, all right? Talk about where you listened to your intuition and kind of followed it and what the result was. Cool?
Yeah.
Thank you, Evan.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Evan. This is
Mind
awesome.
blowing. That was amazing. Thank you so much.